Okay, how's it going, everybody? I have a little bit of time for a Sunday AMA. I haven't done one of these in many, many moons, but I thought it would be cool to pop on and offer you guys a chance to ask me about stuff. And in lieu of anyone having anything to ask, I have the subject of are you really a free thinker or not? Which I think is one of the most poignant and important topics we could possibly be discussing at our current juncture in history. Because what is happening is, I believe that the propaganda machine is generating what appear to be alternative narratives that make people feel like they're fighting the man and they're taking down the deep state and all this kind of crap. And what they're really doing is just falling right into line and serving the purposes of the people they think they're out to destroy. And it would be funny if it wasn't so threatening. You know what I mean? So, you know, I don't like to talk about politics, and I'm not really going to, but I feel like Donald Trump is really the best example possible of this. People really believe in the deep state, and they really believe that Donald Trump has gone rogue to take out the deep state. But if you really believe in the deep state, how much cognitive dissonance do you have to think that anyone the deep state didn't approve and wasn't serving their purposes would get into the White House? This is what free thinking looks like, actually critically thinking through all of the possibilities and all of the relevant tributaries. And my observation is that people are extremely reticent to do this. Another great example that I can come up with, and by the way, for those of you that are just tuning in, it is an AMA, and this stuff that I'm talking about is just the filler between the presumptive questions that we're anticipating. What's up, Big C? Haven't seen you in the chat in hella long time. Too long. I hope all's going well with you. My boy's been around for since nearly the beginning of this channel, I think. And so another good example of this, the other day, Trump says, Ohio, they're eating the cats and dogs. And he sounded like a complete raving lunatic. And he is a raving lunatic, right? For sure. I mean, but I did a bunch of research and found tons of videos of people videoing their neighbors with cat skins all around the grill and cats on the grill and, dogs on spits. Somebody's looking out their window and, so it's real. I don't know whether it's really Haitian immigrants or if it's happening in Springfield, but the people on the left, of course, oh, he's just a raving idiot. This isn't real, blah, 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 laughing their heads off. And let me tell you, there's nothing dumber looking than a person that's laughing their head off at something that is true. That's like I can't really think of many things that are more embarrassing than that. And it's a normal reaction to truth in our society by and large. It is, here's another great one. And, I apologize that all of these examples are political, but this is the most prevalent and obvious example of this kind of thing. It comes from politics. So we know for a fact that 1% have consolidated all the wealth and that they exert control over everyone below them on the pyramid, right? But then people somehow think that it makes sense that the people that can afford to lobby presidents, that can bankroll their campaigns. No, people laugh at truth, man. I mean, it's true, old YouTube account, that people laugh when they don't understand something. But they also laugh in the face of things that are true just because they're trying to follow the narrative of their demographic. You know what I mean? They're virtue signaling, or at least trying to avoid being ostracized. Which is, kind of reasonable, but the cost of this kind of dumb fuckery has exceeded our budget pretty significantly at this point. So what I was saying is, everyone knows the power's been consolidated in like the tiny 1%. And I think that 1% is actually shrinking. So, it's becoming like 0.8%, smaller and smaller, that controls the massive wealth. And so who's bankrolling the Republicans and Democrats? The same people, the same interests, and if you have just a tiny bit of understanding of Orwellian propaganda, which is just based on real world propaganda. He didn't make it up for the book. It's based on how propaganda actually works. Which do they still assign people to read that in school? I wonder, because if so, and people still are missing all of this, it's really scary. But yeah, so the bottom line is, we know for certain that both parties are controlled by the same interest, because all of the money, all of the interests, all of the people that would donate money, it all is trickling down from the same concentrated group at the top of the pyramid. I mean, this kind of stuff probably doesn't even need to be said to my audience. But I guess what I'm hoping is that maybe I can offer you guys another angle or another way to articulate this the next time you find yourself at Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner and you're surrounded by a bunch of muggles and, and you just are out of ammo. This just isn't hard to do, really, whoa, you actually found those videos? Yeah, I did find the videos. I found lots of videos of people recording their neighbors eating cats and dogs and rats and stuff. But here's the thing. In none of those videos was there a Haitian person. There was no indication. There were no people in any of them. So, one of the things that has to be acknowledged, going back to critical thinking, and I'm glad you mentioned this, being a free thinker, because the other question that you have to answer is there proof that it was the people he says? And then when you look at every video you can find of cats and dogs being cooked on spits, and there's not one person in any of them. Not one person. So why is that? Why is that? Why is there not one person in any of the videos? So now that strongly suggests that it could be Trump supporters that are just setting these things up and making them themselves. I would not put it past some redneck hunter to go out and actually round up a bunch of cats and skin them and try to frame immigrants for it. Totally possible. And again, why are there no people in any of the videos of people cooking pets? There are no people in any of them. So that suggests it's not propaganda, because the propaganda machine could literally pay Haitians enough money to be in the video doing this. There are people that would not care and would take the money and they would do it. But I have not been able to find one single video that actually has a person in it. And that suggests very strongly that they actually are being set up by Trump supporters, or people that don't have access to resources, so they don't have the money to hire actors to come in, so they're not propaganda. They're more than likely, they're real. I'm certain that they're real. I mean, AI is not that good at this point, So they probably are staged and not by the government. And it's wild that we have inculcated people into these slave system political parties to the extent that it seems totally reasonable that people would do that. Here's another great example of cognitive dissonance from the political world that I came across the other day. This was a mind boggler. Some influencer on X posted, "Dear MAGA, you are in a cult. You wear matching hats. You fly flags on your boats and your trucks. We don't do that. We are independent people and individuals and shit." The same fucking guy posts a picture saying of big giant trucks, redneck trucks with Kamala Harris flags looking just like the Trump ones, with the hats on and everything, with the caption being, "Look, we're out patriotisming," or whatever, the MAGA crowd. This dude 2 hours earlier had posted, "We don't do all this cult shit that you guys do on the other side." And then on top of that, there are millions of people following this account. None of them on either post seem to notice that only a few hours apart, this guy had made this completely glaringly contradictive statement. Not only contradictive, but if his original logic that MAGA is a cult could, it was defined by those characteristics that he presented. Now he's saying they are also a cult by his own metric for what a cult is. So, I mean, I'm almost doing this stream more just out of pure perplexity that I'm actually witnessing the things that I'm witnessing in this world. I mean, it's so bananas, apeshit crazy that it's literally nearly impossible to believe it's actually happening. That made me think of another one that was incredibly ridiculous that I think just occurred today. Oh, yeah. So there's this raving idiot named Matt Wallace on X. I mean, the guy is a complete sack of shit. He's either paranoid, schizophrenic, and stupid, or he's being paid to associate the free-thinking, conspiracy theorist types with complete idiocy and lunacy. And the most recent example today, there was a 3-year-old kid that escaped into a cornfield, and there was like drone footage when they found him, and he's saying 3-year-old kid in a cornfield, evidence of aliens. And there were like 25 million comments or something, and they're all equally stupid people that are like, really, actually their logic is that, the kid was in the middle of a cornfield, he must have been abducted. And why does this matter so much? It matters a lot, to people like me and you, I hope. Because I would like to see a more sane, rational world where we can do something to minimize the loss of human potential, increase the depth of human expression, and create a greater sense of unity and sense of purpose throughout the entirety of mankind, and this whole process of thinking really freely, which means that you have to transcend all of the political doctrines, religious dogmas, whatever it is that have been inculcated into your ontological perceptual apparatus, and iron out the fucking doctrinal wrinkles and cracks and creases, the mind forged manacles. You got to find the key and unlock them shits and get out of them. You have to be able to look for the key bono in every bit of information that you encounter. If, for example, communism lends itself to abuse by the powers that be, like capitalism and socialism and every other ism in the world, I'm sure whoever you are, wherever you live, you hate whatever ism you've been told to hate by your culture because it's a threat to the one that they already use, Not the point, though. The way that the propaganda machine will spin this stuff is that, is communism bad? Okay. But then whenever anyone talks about a unified sense of purpose, they're a communist, and therefore you should hate the idea of unified sense of purpose. So the only way that methodology can be applied to managing people is that they are not good at critical thinking and they are not really free thinkers, because for me, when I'm encountered with, look at the what's happened in these communist countries and whatnot, and then someone tries to spin it like, that means a unified sense of purpose is for, trans hippie pussies or whatever a right winger would say. You know the trick, instantly. It's like, no, this is not, you can't just do that. You can't just lump things all up, and that's not it. That's not how it works. That's not, and then we had, recently in the United States, another great one. I think it was Kentucky. They were like super anti, socialism. It's like someone did a poll, and then they figured out that rural Kentucky residents are getting $2.85 for every $1 of tax money they pay in public services. You know, this inability to think critically and to really be a free thinker has been weaponized against people. They will fight against their own interests in order to preserve the boot on their throat and ensure that it cannot be removed. You know, this is what this indoctrination does. And the only way out of it is to enhance and develop critical free thought. It really is that simple. It really is that simple. And one of the indicators that this sort of techno-fascist technocracy or whatever is fascist technocracy was really starting to take root in the United States was first pot getting legalized in California, going from, a medical card to just, more open. It was for personal medical use, and then it went commercial. Like, we all knew this is terrible, and all the mom and pop farmers were crushed. The last outlaw bastion of people in the United States was gone, and Monsanto and all these big corporations came in and took over the pot growing businesses. That was the first indicator. Damn if I didn't just lose my train of thought. I started thinking about Mendocino County and how nice and beautiful it was and how much I loved the beaches and whatnot. And my that was important. So I'm actually going to pull up my own stream, and I'm going to go back a minute and find the and actually we'll use this opportunity as a bit of a commercial break. I am demonetized, so I get no support from YouTube in any way, shape, or form, which means that I am entirely dependent upon my YouTube audience for support. So it's great if you become a patron, you get access to 4 years of I get no support premium content, and you can sign up for blocks of FaceTime for various types of consultations and United States. Also, we're having events in November and May. Might add another one in between because that's an awful lot of time. But November probably mid-month until the middle of December, so people can go home for the holidays. And then also May 1st to the end of May in Manu, Peru, in the jungle. So let's see. What do we got here? States was first pot getting legalized in order to preserve the boot on their throat and ensure that it is simple. It really is that simple. And one of the I remember now. Okay. That this sort sorry. What I was saying is I realized that that shit was going bad deliberately when the U.S. I found out. I don't know how long this took. It couldn't have been too long because when I was a kid, the U.S. had the number one education system in the world, and my county, Fairfax County, had the best education system in the entire United States. In fact, the Ivy League schools kind of rated it just the same as they would like expensive private schools around the world. The public county, public education system that was world class. And now I think it's like 31 or something like that. And the thing is, you don't just make mistakes like that on accident. When you are one of the greatest empires in the history of the universe, or not the universe, the planet, in the history of our universe, that doesn't just happen. The dumbification of the nation, the idiocracy of the United States. It used to be a democracy, now it's an idiocracy. That is deliberate. It was absolutely deliberate. And a lot of people are asking, how did this happen? How did we go from just in like 2020, people, being Any experience with Thoth? Yeah, I'll talk about Thoth. We finally got a question. That's great. Yeah, cognitive dissonance is incredible. We were talking about cognitive dissonance a little while ago. Like the power that it has comes from the fact that it's part of our instinct apparatus. It allows us to lie to ourselves in productive ways on a day-to-day basis. Like heuristic bias is your belief that just because you've driven in a car, thousands of times, you're going to be safe this time going to the grocery store, and you might die. But heuristic bias is a mechanism that our cognitive faculties have generated, our instinct for self-preservation has generated this bias in order to protect us from having people that have anxiety and, irrational fear, PTSD. It's basically a breakdown of heuristic bias, So all of these biases, the reason they're so powerful is because if you challenge somebody that has these conflicting ideas in their head, billionaire, establishment person, liberator of mankind, like that kind of cognitive dissonance is unbelievably dumb. But once it's rooted there, if you challenge it, the person's fight or flight instinct is triggered. So yeah, that's that. And so it's the dumbification of the idiocracy of the United States that allowed them to plant these conflicting beliefs so deeply, because the critical thinking and free thought apparatus in the mind was steamrolled, and weakened by this disintegrating education system, and then that created fertile soil to start to really socially engineer these mind fucks that have left people completely unable to think like people used to be able to think. And it's really not extreme, and I'm not exaggerating. This isn't hyperbole or whatever. It's, literally what's happening. They have dumbed down the population to the point where they can feed people increasingly obvious, and I can't even find the word. It's like it's not even necessary to make things believable anymore. They don't have to really even be concerned about whether it's obviously a lie or whether there's contradicting information all over the internet and planet. People are just conditioned as if they're still in high school to follow whatever narrative will get them approval and save them from ostracization. And, like this people eating cats and dogs thing, once they know that their side has approved this message, they don't care whether it's true or not. They're not going to look. If you tell them, they're going to just call you a Nazi or something. You know what I mean? It was engineered to be that way, deliberately. Okay, so completely changing subjects now. Brandon has asked me about experiences with Thoth. I don't know what you mean by experiences, but for me, beings like this are not like real individuals. I don't believe in really even in disincarnate beings of any kind. It's an archetype of consciousness, and it is a part of the human mind. A lot of people probably don't know this, but Aleister Crowley was actually designated the 42nd most important Brit of all time by the Crown in like 2003 or something. And I thought that was a really weird move, and it was even weirder when I looked it up, and it said that the reason was that he had mapped hitherto unknown portions of the human mind. And in Magic and Theory and Practice, I don't remember what page, he also says that, spirits like Zedekiel are not real in the way that the IRS is real. These are modalities of consciousness that the drama and the fact that the mind works in a language of symbols, it makes it so that you're more able to refine your consciousness and attenuate it to a very specific frequency, and therefore you are able to talk to an angel or a demon. That's how he was really thinking about this stuff. And a lot of the theatrics and whatnot are there to create excitement and emotional charge, energetic charge, in the same way that if you're trying to retain a memory, emotional charge around that memory can cause it to imprint more permanently, right? So, but in terms of Thoth as an archetype, I did have an experience many years ago during the Phoenix process, which I almost hate using that term because I had made it up for my own purposes, and then I discovered there's a popular like self-help line, like some new agey kind of looks like garbage to me, line of books or something that's called the Phoenix process, and I'm always concerned that people think I mean that somehow, and I don't at all. But one of the bits of information that I received during that period, and I, with the full caveat that I don't necessarily believe all this stuff. It's just that I have to take into consideration that this voice that I encountered during this time, everything it told me that could be provable turned out to be true. Some of which no one on Earth knew at the time, like the Sirius B gas giant. We'll get to that in a second. Oh, the PRS guitar? Yeah, okay. When I'm going to try to get through this Thoth thing. So, when man, this is a tough thing to consolidate. I basically have been thinking along the lines of Hermeticism since I was a small child, I guess. And the idea that like the entire universe is one conscious intelligence, and that we're really just here to experience the universe, and that kind of thinking. So I don't remember exactly how it happened. I guess I probably first encountered these things reading Joseph Campbell, the Harvard mythologist that wrote about the mysteries a lot, in junior high school. And eventually it came to me during this Phoenix process thing that Thoth was actually a star being, or a disincarnate intelligence, or a avatar from the future, or something that wasn't a physical human being. It was not clear what exactly the nature was, and he taught this kind of way of viewing the world where nature is read as an allegory, and there are certain like axioms and principles like those in the Kabbalion that are kind of foundational to start developing the thinking. You need to understand it all before you can kind of even embark on it. And then once you have launched that process, you have to continue to develop other types of skills, a pretty broad skill set, in order to protect yourself from delusion and ego inflation. And, there's all sorts of traps and snares and missteps that you can make. So from this Thoth individual, Thoth the Atlantean, some people call him. I don't know if I give any credence to Atlantis at all. But yeah, so that's the rough answer. I guess the only other thing that I'll say about that right now, in the interest of time, because we have Changa ceremony in 30 minutes, is that the whole Mercury Thoth archetype, I guess, some of the most astounding book of life, scripture writ large upon the land for those who have eyes to see it kind of vibes, some of the strangest coincidences that I've ever encountered have to do with the name Mercury, or well, let me explain, right? So in alchemy, people think that you turn lead into gold, but that's an oversimplification. It's actually Mercury into gold, and lead is used as well. But the thing that actually changes is the mercury. And so we have discovered, I think 2013, or it was actually longer ago than that. They just were still denying it, I guess, for some reason until fairly recently. That if you knock a proton off of mercury, it becomes gold, right? So I have in this book right here, the formerly secret book of the Freemasons from 1851, a description of that the alchemists were using electric current to transform mercury into, and he didn't say knock a proton off because he didn't have that language, but that's pretty wild, right? But the point is, the planet Mercury is the closest to the sun, and the people that named the sun soul, whatever, and attributed gold as the, metaphorical substance, they did not know that if you knock a proton off of Mercury, it becomes gold. Mercury right next to the sun. And if you consider that the teachings of Mercury are supposed to, that they reflect exactly this type of phenomena, on top of how weird that is alone, but that's what the Mercury thoth kind, if it's true, that's the kind of stuff you would see in the universe. So is this making sense? Yeah, but there's more. There's more weird shit going on with this. Mercury was, the Greek Mercury was a psychopomp that helped souls to travel to the other side, the land of the dead. And so in Egypt and the Aztecs, neither of whom called this metal that we now call mercury, they put mercury around their caskets in order to help the deceased make it to the other world. What is this? What is this? And we could unpack that one for quite a long time, but I'm just trying to answer Brandon's question regarding Thoth and Mercury, and that's what I came up with for that. So we had another, what am I doing to free Palestine? I'm not doing anything to free Palestine. What the hell would I do to free Palestine? All right, somebody asked a question about my guitar. It is a Paul Reed Smith. Somebody else asking, why does this person have a different name in each chat? I don't know what I think of that. I have a Paul Reed Smith guitar, and there's not much of a story behind it. Yeah, there's not much of a story behind it. I have a Paul Reed Smith guitar. I have another Paul Reed Smith guitar that is my real guitar that my mother bought for me in my early 20s that I left with a friend in the United States, and I have been meaning to go back and get it, and I have been stuck sort of in South America for 6 years now. Thoughts on the story of Osiris? I actually made a really interesting video. I think it's one of the best videos I've made, although there's a couple of cringy moments called, here, I'll even try to put it in the chat for you guys, because I would like for as many people to see this as possible, and I don't think it got a lot of love from the internet. What's it called again? The Eye of Horus. Actually, do you guys want to watch it real quick? Why don't we watch it? Let me see. Yeah, I can just share my screen and we can watch it. What am I doing to free Palestine? Because at least. Yeah, and unfortunately, I re-uploaded it, I think, but so because it says it was only 2 years ago. But it was made in May of 2020. So that's something to keep in mind, that this video was prescient to an almost alarming degree. Oh, I just realized I don't think the people in the vertical will be able to see this. Okay, so which thing is it? Is it screen cap? Yeah, screen capture. Sorry, I'm not the most technologically inclined person. There we go. Yep. Vertical is just going to get an audio feed. Terribly sorry about that. Old cringy videos are always hard to revisit, but this one's got solid knowledge. Let's see, did I leave my face hole somewhere? No. Let's see, how do I do that? Window capture, there we go. Okay, so this to here. All right, it's okay, there's that back. Sorry, guys.
Rule of the state is a function of the absolute rule of the state is a function of the absolute liberty of the individual, but that cannot happen until there is a collective worldwide gnosis. And I know this sounds a bit utopian, but I'm telling you, it is definitely possible. In this video, we're going to take a look at the emergent global chaostrophe through the lenses of ancient Egyptian mythology. And we're going to do this not only because ancient wisdom is not necessarily taught or generally understood in a way that really conveys its true value, but also because, as we all know, there are patterns in history that repeat. And I think that an examination of these patterns can help to inform us, and in this case, allow us maybe to even kind of predict the ultimate outcome of the transitions that we're experiencing. So do me a favor, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Please do support us on Patreon, because that is what allows us to continue.
Y'all heard the man.
Incredibly, this mythology is just as relevant today as it was at the time of the Egyptians' own plague. A lot of ancient cultures, possibly because they existed for much longer time periods than ours, observed great cycles. The Mayans had the long count year of 26,000 years. It was based on the precession of the equinoxes. The Egyptians had the reign of gods. The reigns of these different gods actually represent modalities of consciousness. As we will see, every equinox there is an emergent new modality of consciousness, and I'm suggesting in this video that we are on the precipice of one such transformation. There's the matriarchal period where the feminine was kind of the focus of the culture and the focus of worship. The calendars were based on lunar cycles, and then eventually we moved away from that around the founding of the time of Egypt towards a solar-based kind of worship and a patriarchal, not only religious orientation, but also in our government we tended towards the masculine and the solar. These patterns that are being described by these ancient cultures are expressing through all systems and throughout all of time. And of course, because they're so large, there's absolutely no way we can have a instrument to measure them. They're not very observable, but I think the fact that maps have sort of been made in these old mythologies kind of indicates that these are repeating patterns. What these cycles imply is that we can actually rely and trust that the eventual integration of the necessary consciousness will be part of an organic process, a collective gnosis. And so Osiris was the god that defined the period of the founding of the Egyptian empire. He was a powerful, benevolent, and just king, or god king as it were. But eventually, at the time of the equinox of the gods, he had become archaic and blind. And why is that? He was the ethos of the empire, which we could also think of as culture. And culture is basically a construct of the dead. It's the baggage of our ancestors. And this is one of the main reasons, I think, and one of the reasons that this ancient mythology is so poignant at the current juncture, is that generational dissonance is a huge problem and a very difficult thing to reconcile. To see through the eyes of the culture of your ancestors is to sort of see the world through corpse goggles. The dead are not living, they're not evolving, they're not breathing, they're not changing in the United States. The old ethos is indeed dead. Osiris was democracy and freedom and independence. And of course, you know, the United States at this point is one of the most heavily regulated. Surveillance is incredibly tight. All of your information is consumed by government and corporate agencies, and the people are in total denial about this. What we see in the public at large right now, with the tendency towards cognitive dissonance and selective perception and research that is basically entirely based on confirmation bias, is these things are actually coping mechanisms. And the reason that we have gravitated towards this sort of artificial surface level interaction with our worlds is that it makes it easier. If you don't have to be honest with yourself about what kind of person your child might be or who their friends are, and you don't really want to know your coworkers in a tremendous amount of depth, you only want to deal with things as deeply as it is required of you in order to function in our society. And I think that this has had basically calamitous effects, and we have become a very sort of shallow, vapid, despondent kind of culture. And in this mythology of Osiris and Horus, I think that we have a real clue to the antidote to our situation. Back to Egypt. So what happens? The body of Osiris, which represents Egypt and all of its provinces, have been scattered. The empire cannot be unified. There's chaos. The malevolent influence of his brother Set and the willful blindness of Osiris have decimated the empire beyond any hope of reconciliation. Chaos, which is embodied by Isis, who is Osiris's wife and the queen of the underworld, becomes aware of the dismemberment of her husband, and so she comes up from the underworld, and it seems as if she is going to reign. She has usurped the throne, so to speak, if temporarily. She roams about the land seeking to reassemble the body of her fallen husband Osiris, but she's only able to find his member. Eventually, she becomes impregnated with the seed of a new order, the new god, the new aeon, a new modality of consciousness. The child, the lord of the new aeon, the crowned and conquering god Horus, as a bird of prey, he is endowed with far greater eyesight than our own. He soars above everything and so procures a higher perspective from his lofty elevation, far above our own acutely limited visa. He is not blind like his father, and so he can be victorious because he knows what he is up against. He does battle with the malevolent force of the old Aeon, Osiris's brother Set, and during this battle he loses an eye. This happens because confronting evil directly often damages our consciousness or our perception. This at least partly explains the willful blindness that we see in society. People are not inclined to take this risk. And so, emerging victorious, Horus travels to the underworld, where he is reunited with Osiris, or the traditions and the ethos of the old Aeon. He gives Osiris his extracted eye, so that his vision may not only be restored, but revivicated, by integration with the new consciousness and the higher perspective of the younger god Horus. And thusly conjoined in vision and spirit, they return to Egypt, the land of the living, to rule together. The corollary with our current predicament seems almost too obvious to bear elucidation. America and the rest of the world is at just such a spiritual crossroads. The necessity of the old guard to integrate the new consciousness into their blind, dead, archaic, and misguided traditions and institutions has never been more obvious. A ruler needs to have the qualities of the combined Horus and Osiris. And certainly the current election, where we have Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, we don't have the potential for that in our leader. And what I learned myself when I was doing the research and contemplating the stuff to make this video over the last couple of days, I had gotten to the point where I just wanted to see the whole entire system burned to the fucking ground. But after contemplating this mythology, it occurred to me that it may actually be possible to revive our own Osiris with new sight rather than to abandon him in the underworld. We can do in the face of a total void of any leadership that represents the new consciousness. We have to become the embodiment of Osiris and Horus in ourselves. In the country that I come from, in the United States, at least in this election cycle, there's absolutely no hope that we are going to have a leader that really represents the kind of consciousness, the kind of forward-thinking, anarchistic tendencies of this new paradigm. I think the real value in the Gnosis is that people that experience these spiritual awakenings, they come to serve life as their God. And it's an organic process. It's not the same as ascribing to some old book of rules of ancient date designed to make us all feel great while we fold, spindle, and mutilate the unbelievers from a neighboring state. Thank you, Frank Zappa. We're not trying to conform to a set of ideals. When you have these experiences and you have the direct knowledge, the gnosis, that we are all truly one soul, divided for the sake of union, when we know that any individual that we're interacting with is but our reflection, and who are we to judge or strike them down, we don't need to be governed any longer. And I know for a fact that there is a constituency of powerful people that actually actively work to suppress this kind of consciousness. We do not have an aristocracy that is trying to cultivate the highest potential in the masses and really see the greatest expression of human potential come to fruition that is humanly possible. They could cultivate that. I know how to do it. Aleister Crowley knew how to do it. Rudolf Steiner knew how to do it, 150 years ago. One of the ways that Crowley and Steiner both advocated this could be done was to allow children to determine their own subjects of study from a very young age. And recently studies have been done that have confirmed that is absolutely correct, that the herd conformity, stuffing the child into this mold, universal fit, is not the best way to bring the best out in a child. And so this type of education should be relegated to the dustbins of history. It should become a ghost of the old aeon. These people definitely know about psychology. They know about human tendencies. They have access to all of the Ivy League research that you could possibly dream of. If they really wanted to engineer a culture that represented the best of humanity, that's what they would do, and they do not. So we have to stop looking to the leaders to do this for us, because at least for the time being, it has become clear that they are not going to let, at least in the United States, anyone anywhere near a seat of power that has the objective of actually cultivating this illuminated society. So thanks a lot for watching, and just keep the faith. Order out of chaos. And we don't really know for sure which way it'll go. Is the new order going to be that based on the kind of consciousness that we see emerging in the collective now, or is it going to be a new order in the sense of absolute control, this new world order kind of oriented, fear-based paradigm? I personally feel that one way or another, this more evolved, high vibrational consciousness will take its seat upon a throne and take the scepter, and the Eon of Horus will be the Eon where the absolute rule of the state is a function of the absolute liberty of the individual, but that cannot happen until there is a collective worldwide gnosis. And I know this sounds a bit utopian, but I'm telling you, it is definitely possible, and I think that we have the tools at our disposal to actually effectualize the changes. So hit the like button.
What am I doing to free Palestine? Okay, well, so that was my old Osiris video. It occurred to me while I was watching it that oh wait, let me go back and fix this so it's not all dildos. That I should use that script and remake that video now that I know how to edit a little bit better. Oh man, what have I got to put on the top now? Screen capture. This one goes away. All right, I'm back. I have a loose connection somewhere, and if I so much as click too hard, then the thingy gets messed up. All right, so I have only a few more minutes. If anyone has any other questions, I'll be happy to do my best to address them. Well, there's the Free Palestine thing in there. I mean, this is another one of those free thinking kind of. Oh man, what happened? This is one of those questions of free thought, because obviously Israel. I have no problem with the people of Israel. I have no problem with Jewish people. In fact, I study Jewish mysticism. I've even tried to learn ancient Hebrew to an extent. It's just it's the way that the political machine has managed to spin all this stuff is just so unbearably goddamn stupid and transparent. But what am I doing to free Palestine? I am making this content. What are you doing? I bet less. If that was meant to be antagonistic, But obviously, the genocide in Palestine is ridiculous, and the average Palestinian person does not belong to Hamas. In fact, only 15% of people, of Palestinian people, support Hamas, which is almost no one. And the Israeli government is probably even worse than the United States in terms of propaganda. And this actually gives me an opportunity to kind of highlight how they use deliberate sowing of cognitive dissonance in order to create this political division. And so, you have on the right a whole lot of anti-Semitism. They're constantly saying there's a Jewish cabal that's taking over the world. They have to be stopped. If there's a Jewish cabal that is doing that, who do you think they are? Israel, right? So how do you all support Israel? Like that's some brain having shit for sure. Uh, Brilliant, absolutely brilliant logic and reasoning on the part of these folks over there on that side of the aisle. At the same time, they have the left supporting Hamas or Palestine, but Hamas and a lot of the people that I have seen speaking about this, you actually hear that. I think Free Palestine is, probably a movement that largely consists of people that know better, that they're actually saying Free Palestine from Hamas and Israel. But it's still ironic that the left is supporting the anti-gay, because it's true that if you make this if you distinguish between Hamas and Palestine, it's still true that they're mostly Muslim and therefore are not okay with homosexuality, or not supporting transgender, or not supporting women's rights, or not supporting anything progressive anywhere across the board. So, and this has been done to them deliberately, because that cognitive dissonance is the most essential part of propaganda. Think about the Orwellian lines: "War is peace, peace is or freedom is slavery, friend is enemy." This is the fundamental operating mechanism of the propaganda. So yeah, that's I'm glad you brought that up, because this is one of the most and it proves the other side of this, that the reason these propaganda techniques are so powerful, with cognitive dissonance being like a fundamental constituent of them, one of the most important elements, is that if you challenge them, once they are embedded, the person will just be triggered. Look at them. Go up to a right winger and say, Do we need to get rid of this Jewish cabal that's controlling all the banks and blah, 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 and Hollywood and everything, and they're going to eat your babies or whatever? Do we need to get rid of them? Hell yeah. Do you support Palestine? Fuck Palestine. I support Israel. You know what I mean? And then tell them, wait a minute. What? Explain to them what I just explained to you. Watch what happens. They're going to become furious and storm off, And the same thing will happen if you point out to some blue-haired, Zer that the Palestine is Muslim and therefore does not support anything they stand for in their lives, and you'll get the same reaction, and that is our major difficulty, So I guess thinking about this, because I hate to talk about problems without offering a solution, and I don't think how's it going, Alpha Draconian? Good to see you back. I don't think I do that a lot. I really try not to, but it just occurred to me that I could also think about this. Like, how is it that we could engineer conversations that would allow us to enter into these territories where there are all these sugar landmines in people, all these hot button issues, wedge issues really, that are driven between everyone in order to divide. That's why they're called wedge issues. There's got to be a way to tactfully enter into these places and spaces and have some kind of dialogue about it. Because if not, we're all fucking doomed. And sooner than later, All right, so it is almost 8 o'clock, and I have got an appointment. One of our guests has his bicentennial birthday tonight, so that's really quite a big deal for someone to come and spend their 50th birthday with you. That's kind of a massive landmark and a huge transition for a person, or for a person making a huge transition in their life at that age is, another level of turning 50. So, Changa is what the doctor ordered. What the hell? I asked for the AI to create me an image of a woman shooting sheep in a field with a universe in her head. And instead, it gave me a picture of a woman with a tire around her head. And at one point, and I said nothing about Yopo, one of the images I was given was of a woman blowing rape into the nose of a sheep. Like trying to wake it up, I guess. But I didn't say anything about waking up the sheep. I wanted the woman with the enlightened universe in her mind, to kill the sheep, but it wouldn't do it. So that's why my thumbnail's not quite as provocative as it would have been if I'd had my druthers. All right, guys, thank you so much for spending this time with me. We do have a bunch of videos in chunks and pieces, all scattered around in my computer, and I don't know when they're going to get finished because we're just so busy for 2 more weeks, but I'm going to try to pop on when I can. I've been able to keep up with all of my secret streams for patrons, and the Discord chats are still happening. So please do become a patron. Our numbers always drop this time of year, and it makes it really difficult, on top of being very busy, for me to justify doing stuff with YouTube. So if you like my presence here on the internet, please consider compensating me for it. Hey, what was your thought about when Trump said they were eating pets? That's hilarious that you asked that, because that's how I started the stream. It appears to be true. That's the thing. I do not like Trump. I don't like Harris. I think I probably dislike Trump more, but I don't think there's really a lesser of two evils. They're both owned by the same people, and there's no possibility that isn't true. 1% controls all the wealth. The wealth runs the show. All of their interests are connected at the top. So how does anyone still dispute that? It's fucking stupid. It's the dumbest thing that's happening on the planet right now. And it's also the one lie that is standing between us and a better world. Really. You know, the biggest fucking brick wall between us and them is that. But so what I was saying about the Trump thing is that when I saw this, you know, he's saying Haitian immigrants are eating the dogs and the cats. He said, my dog is gone. Now, any person that doesn't think that was an outright lie is beyond help. You know what I mean? Like, that was just the most blatant lie I've ever seen from a politician with cameras in their face. His dog was not taken by the immigrants. It's just, come on. How the fuck did they get my dog's gone? I couldn't believe he said that. Like, that was just the end of the, you know, it was so stupid. Biggest lie ever, like most obvious lie, you know, maybe not the biggest, but the most obvious, like there's no way that's true, you know? But then I looked up for videos of cats and dogs being grilled, and I found them, lots of them. Cats, dogs, rats. Here's the thing though. There was not a single person in any of the videos. They didn't show the person. So either it was someone that was trying to support Trump's accusation that it was Haitians, while there was actually some white guy from, you know, whatever, Chicago in his backyard, not even in Springfield. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why there is no person in any of the videos. If it was me, and I one of the people said it was they saw their neighbor, it was a dog on a spit, and they were saying they saw their neighbor roasting their dog right in front of them. And first of all, you know, if that was me, you know, there'd be shots fired probably if that was my dog. You know what I mean? First of all. Second of all, why wouldn't they get the person in the frame if they're cooking their dog? You know? So I find the fact that there are no people in any of these videos extremely suspicious. So it's really, really likely that it's just Trump supporters trying to validate him. And they're literally rednecks out, you know, hunting their neighbors' cats and doing the things that Trump was saying the Haitian immigrants are doing in order to support or to make it appear that his remarks were validated. And, you know, if you dispute that, tell me why there's not a single person in any of the videos. You would not avoid the person. You would want to get them in a, you know what I mean? So that's weird to me. But it looked real. I mean, it was not AI. None of the videos were AI. And there were, in one of them, there were cat skins. And there were what were obviously cats on the grill. And then another one, it was a dog on a spit. And then there were some other ones with rats and stuff. But again, not one single video I found had the person who was cooking the animals actually featured in it. Yeah, I mean, it's a wild world, you guys, but, you know, one of the things I wanted to make sure I said tonight that I may not have said in the earlier part of the video, I probably did, I don't know, may not have though, so it's really important for those of us that are trying to represent a free-thinking crowd to make sure that you're not posting shit about the earth being flat or, you know, baseless conspiracy type stuff or anything that does not have a completely solid foundation in reality and proof to back it up. You know, because every single time someone does that, it hurts an entire planet, really. You know, it is a big deal. You really have to learn to filter everything that comes through. You know, I've made mistakes in the past and whatnot, but because of those mistakes, I now vet everything a lot more thoroughly than I used to. Now nothing gets by me that is bullshit. Oh, and you can find these videos on X, of course, you know. And that's what makes me think that that's actually the only place I've seen them, now that I think about it. Of course, they wouldn't be on YouTube. But X is definitely heavily censored in favor of the right. You know, anyone that believes Elon Musk's bullshit about how he's, you know, fighting censorship. You got to screw loose. Black and white people, we is not wrapped tight. Where was I going with this? Yeah, you gotta vet shit. You gotta make sure that you know that the things that you're putting out there are legit. And I really also believe that there's been a really concentrated effort to embarrass and what is the word? Invalidate free thinking people by creating movements or assisting movements like Flat Earth that are, I think they just exist for that single purpose of making people that look like, or making people that are thinking out of the box look like a bunch of morons by association. There's another thing that happened before the pandemic that I hesitate to talk about because I'm always getting in trouble on this channel and I can't afford it. By the way, join my Patreon. Oh yeah, okay. So, yeah, I don't know, man. You guys might have to follow me on X if you're curious what I was about to say, because I just, I mean, look at this world, this Orwellian nightmare that we are in. By the way, you guys, speaking of free thinking, John Zorn's Secret Chiefs 3, listen to it on psilocybin. It is the greatest musical event of the entire history of humanity. But read the lyrics first. It goes from like Arabic progressive classical sort of thing, and then rock music starts fading into the next song a little bit, and then there's like electronic shit that is on a level that I didn't know existed. I don't think anyone but John Zorn did or has. And then it becomes like the heaviest, evilest metal that I've ever heard in my life, but also like the most precise music maybe I've ever heard. And the lyrics are actually really positive. If you look them up, you have to look at the lyrics first. And it ends with this like Tim Burton-esque symphonic thing that somehow sounds like a symphony made of bones. And you can see the ships in your mind's eye. And I knew it was about these ships because I could see them, but I didn't understand the lyrics, and the references to the boats were in Latin. So there's no way I knew. It's that programmatic where you can actually, trust me, just read the lyrics first, eat some mushrooms, put on the album. You'll never recover. What was I saying about this last? Oh, yeah, I was trying to decide if I wanted to talk about this at all or not. But before the pandemic, there was a bunch of, a flood of anti, that thing, are idiots type sentiment flooding the internet right before the pandemic. I don't have to say any more than that, So I guess I'm just trying to like elucidate the balance between like, the fact that there's a lot of effort creating Matt Wallace's and promoting their content to make anyone that questions the mainstream narratives look like flaming morons. At the same time, if you've really been paying attention, questioning the mainstream narrative is the duty, obligation, and unavoidable consequence of living through the last, 5 years now, almost, for any like reasonably intelligent thinking person. So the balance must be struck, and the best way to do this, really, and I should have talked about this a long time ago in the stream because I'm kind of out of time now. But to anytime you think anything, to counteract it with the opposite, especially if you believe it, and then trying to make yourself believe the opposing idea, and then see if there's something in the middle, and then you continue this process, and you're separating wheat from chaff, and you are refining, and you are transmuting, and eventually you end up with a fucking little nugget of golden light that is possibly truth. This is the real fundamental process of critical thinking that will free your mind. You know, it's simple, but extremely effective. So thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Please send me millions of dollars on PayPal, Zelle, or cryptocurrency addresses that are in the chat and in the description of all my videos. We are still having an event right now on the 24th or 25th. We may have a room open till the end of the month. I'm doing private 10-day retreat for single people, October only. This will never happen again. So unless, yeah, no, it will never happen again. October only. And then November, we have the mushroom foraging event from mid-November till the middle of December. And then probably not again till May. And then that will be the last event. So email me if you is down and would like to come to my town. Good night.